Okay, so moving ahead, we've got another postulate, another rule. It's called the angle addition postulate. And in words, I'm going to read it and then I'll explain what those words mean. This postulate explained, if P is in the interior of RST, so P is in the interior of RST, then the measure of RST is equal to the sum of the measures of RSP and PST. So these two angles on the inside. So the entire angle is the result of adding these two smaller angles together, okay? So let's just say RSP, the measure of RSP was 30, okay? And let's say 30 degrees. And the measure of PST was, let's say 70. I know that's probably not accurate to this diagram, but if those two angles were 30 and 70, the way I could find the measure of RST is I just add these together. 30 plus 70 is 100 degrees. So that's all it's saying, okay? The two angles add to be the entire bigger angle there. So another example of that, now this is going to involve an equation, okay? So it gives us that GFJ, this angle right here, is 155 degrees. So what we can say, GFH is this expression here, the one on the left, HFJ is this expression on the right. So we can say that GFH plus HFJ, the measures of those, add to equal the measure of GFJ, which is 155. So the way I'd write that out as an equation is 4x plus 4 plus 4x minus 1. I'm going to add together these two angles and set it equal to 155. So that allows me to go ahead and combine some like terms and solve this. So I'm going to combine 4x and 4x. That's 8x. I can combine 4 and negative 1 to be positive 3. And that's equal to 155. So it's just a two-step equation from there. Subtract 3. 8x equals 152. And then x equals should be 19. I'll write that better. X is 19. Now, I did not find what I was asking for in the beginning. I'm asking to find the measure of HFJ. So I'll do a different color for that. The measure of HFJ is 4x minus 1. I know what the value of x is. I know that it's 19. So all I really have to do is take 19 and substitute it in that expression for x, for HFJ, okay? Equals 4 times 19 minus 1. So 4 times 19 minus 1. So 4 times 19 is 76 minus 1. HFJ is 75, okay? And I kind of misled you guys right there too. I also asked to find GFH, okay? So if I found HFJ and I said that that was, I'll put that in blue, 75 degrees, I could just use a little bit of logic and say that if this angle plus this angle is 155, to find the measure of GFH, and run out of room, I could take 155 minus 75 degrees. So 155 minus 75 would be 80 degrees. So those are my two angles that I found. Now, you could have just gone back and put 19 into this expression and you would have gotten the same exact solution. But this is just a little bit more efficient to say the biggest angle in this problem minus one of the angles I know gives me the other angle I don't know. So next, I got it. Good chance for you to pause the video, try it, and then wait a few seconds, and I will explain how I got my solution to this problem. Okay, so here you see my solution to this. So to set this one up, I took these two angles and realized that they would add together to equal VRS. So I took x minus 4 and 3x plus 2, I added them together, and I set that equal to 90 degrees. The key term there is a right angle. Right angle means that it's exactly 90 degrees, and we covered that vocabulary a little bit earlier. The other thing you can see is that little box there, that indicates a 90-degree angle. So I added my expressions together, set that expression, or that set of expressions equal to 90, and went about solving it, and I got that x is 23. I took that 23, I substituted it into VRT, got 23 minus 4 is 19, and then I realized that 90 minus 19 is 71 to get my other angle. So I could have substituted in, I still would have gotten 71, okay? So just make sure you're paying attention to which angle you're substituting x into, all right? So moving ahead, our last couple examples here. Identifying all pairs of congruent angles in the diagram, okay? So when we look at this, we're looking for angles that have the same marking on them. So I look at P and N. They have the same marking, so I would say that angle P is congruent to angle N. And it's important that we put that angle symbol in front because I want to indicate that I'm talking about an angle and not a point, okay? So that's why we put that little angle symbol there. And then I see L and M. They have this little double marking here. That means that L, angle L, is congruent to angle M. So that helps me just determine which angles are congruent. So if angle P is congruent to angle N, and I know the measure of angle P, the measure of angle N is just the exact, the exact same measure as angle P. So if angle P is 120 degrees, so is angle N. So if we know two angles are congruent, we can say their measures are the same. So when I use this M, that stands for the measure of an angle, okay? When I just have the angle symbol, that's me naming the angle. So when you see me put M in front of something, I'd like you to do that too. That indicates the measure of an angle, okay? So the final example that I'm going to cover and show you guys is I have a diagram where a ray, WY, is bisecting this entire angle right here, this angle, XWZ. And I know I've given the measure of one of the angles. So the first thing that would be helpful is to know that bisect means to cut something in half, meaning it cuts its measure in half, okay? So that means that these two angles are congruent, and the markings show that XWY and YWZ are congruent. So I'm giving you that XWY is 29 degrees, okay? And I'm asking you to find XWZ, the entire angle. So if this entire angle is being cut in half, and this half is 29, that means this half is also 29. So angle XWZ is just 29 times 2, or 29 plus 29, but it's those two angles being the same, okay? So that's only when they're marked like this and I talk about bisecting, okay, cutting in half, okay? So the last example here, the last got it questions. Again, pause the video, work through them, and then wait for my explanation, all right? All right, so to finish these notes out, you see my labeling here. It says identify all pairs of congruent angles. Angle B and angle D have the same marking there, so those angles are congruent, B and D. And then A and C have the same marking, so A and C are congruent. So what this is saying is if I know the measure of B, I know the measure of D. They're the same measure, being congruent. So that means angle D is 135 degrees. So pretty straightforward on those. Just understanding the notation and the markings here. Single marking matching a single marking, double marking matching a double marking. And then the final example here is a lot like example 5. We know KM is bisecting this angle, making each of these angles congruent. And we're given that LKM is 78, okay? We're given that. So this allows me to say LKM is 78. So that means that MKN or NKM, however you want to say it, this angle right here is also 78 if it's being bisected. So all I've got to do is take this angle, knowing this other angle is congruent, and double it to get the measure of LKN, the entire angle. Okay, so here's a good chance for you guys to kind of just ask some questions before you move on to the practice and the checkpoint. Make sure that you are working through that practice and not just looking through the answers to work through them, okay? Make sure that you're doing it to the best of your ability on your own and then asking for help periodically through it.